welcome to the second episode of Can This Even Be Called a Music Club, I guess, where we talk about Orgone, the prog death symphonic metal thing. We talk about Uboa, the noise explorator.
Yeah.
It's good. We talk
Yeah.
about Extra Life, the with the blend of like folk or early music with prog rock.
Yeah.
And we talk about Kilter with their jazz metal opera thing. Welcome
What a slate.
aboard.
What a slate for today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what should we begin with? Did anyone have an order?
Uh, if you wanted to, would you want to do just like what did everyone general thoughts first, or do you want to do it album by album? What do you think?
I think last time we went album by album.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that works because we can kind of all discuss each album together as they come up.
Yeah, and
Uh,
branch out and do this discussions and all that.
Yeah.
That's always good.
Dave, I say you kick it off.
Well, first of all, what shirt are you wearing?
Oh, I'm wearing a Geigen shirt today.
Hell yeah. Which
Yeah.
album is that?
It's a lot of words, like Raimbiotic Iridescence
Oh yeah.
album. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Is
it's
that what it's
good.
called?
Undulating
It's not the
waves of
complete
rainbow.
title.
Yeah. Undulating waves of Raimbiotic Iridescence.
Those are definitely some words.
And
Dude,
I'm wearing the a Joe Yepard shirt. Another friend of mine. It's the
Oh
album art for
yeah.
his yet unreleased second solo album.
Isn't he like the guitarist from Three?
Yes, he's the frontman of the band Three,
Right.
and I've actually built the Three website and his solo website, and I'm kind of friends with him, so he actually played at my wedding. So,
Wow.
uh,
what?
and I've seen him a number of times in Woodstock where he lives. But unfortunately, Three has been on hiatus for like over
Yeah.
a decade. But Joey's still releasing solo stuff on his Patreon, and he's starting to get more active. And he plays a lot of solo shows in Woodstock all the time.
Damn, that's cool, man.
Yeah,
Three has got to be in the pantheon of ungoogleable band names.
Oh
totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the website is theband3.com. So if you search the band 3, you'll be able to
Mm,
find them more than just searching the number because it's just the number.
I
gotcha.
just search like Three music
Yeah.
and then it gives me nothing. I don't know why. Matt, are you wearing a band thing?
I forgot to change into more appropriate attire for the podcast, so I'm just rocking a
Damn.
navy blue polo. I'm a poser.
Are you wearing Adidas?
No, this is, I don't know what this is.
Looks like a Slav
A golf shirt.
a Slav shirt.
Some generic golf brand I probably bought at a thrift store. Who knows?
That's cool.
Comfy.
Well, I'm wearing a Contemplator shirt
Oh, I
today.
love that.
It's
I ain't heard
you
them.
can't see shit, but it's a good band, and they're from Quebec, so I'm kind of friends with the guy too. So yeah, it's cool stuff. Go check it out.
Seconded. Great band.
Okay.
So let's start with Uboa, I think. Let's
That's
swing it.
Okay.
okay. So that's what the one I'm presenting today. Yes.
All right. I don't
So
know. I think it
I
was Bishop, but not sure.
Bishop's got extra life.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't want to present Extra Life.
No. So
Just kidding.
Uboa. I heard about this artist maybe with her last release. I'm not sure, but I wasn't paying too close attention. But some people that I respect were buzzing about the album Impossible Light, released earlier this year. And so I checked it out when it came out, and it is a trip. It is an unrelenting slab of noisy, sort of metal adjacent, um, heavy industrial. It's got, it's not industrial in the rhythmic Author and Punisher kind of sense, but more in just the really a lot closer to the noise end. But it is so purposeful. It's a 5 year long project from Xandra Metcalf, trans woman, and it is, there's this burgeoning mass of art and metal art and extreme experimental art being made by trans people and trans women, especially right now. And Uboa is right up there in that. And it's the trans experience and her life and mental health is poured out into this album. She talks about that explicitly on the sort of Bandcamp blurbs as you read through them. So that's an integral part of what you're hearing, is this harshness, this bitterness, this anger, this desperation is all coming from lived experience. And so it's an album you just kind of have to immerse yourself in. You're not coming here for hooks. You're not coming here for beats. You're not coming here for a necessarily pleasant on the surface level type of music, but you're coming here to be wrapped up in someone's harrowing journey. And the dynamics are achieved because you'll have sort of more ambient sections contrasting with more harsh sections, but there's not a ton of melody to latch onto. There's a little bit as sort of you get toward the end of the album. Album closer is title track Impossible Light / Golden Flower, which also features guest artist Ote Oni, who I know absolutely nothing about. So maybe that guest artist is actually injecting a little bit of the sort of shimmer of hope that you get toward the end of this. But other than that, it's intense. It's just very raw and intense and super artistic. And I think many people could hear this and take a lot of different things away from it. So I'm excited to hear what you all took away.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. Like you, I think I've been into Uboa with the album The Origin of My Depression.
Yeah.
There's 2 releases of that on Bandcamp, so I don't know, 2019 and I guess 2023 is the time when it released on record or something. Anyway, the thing with Uboa is that it's really like I feel like it's like prog rock music, it's like a story, but with just noise and just like uh electronics, but you really get you really get the feeling of what she's trying to accomplish there. And it's really amazing. Like I've been hooked with The Origin of My Depression, and then with Impossible Light, it's just like you said, just like there's some hopefulness, and then there's a lot of despair and a lot of anxiety and stuff like that. But you really follow the path with the music, so it's quite interesting.
I love this album. Uh, I think that when I heard the first like 3 songs, I thought that it might be my album of the year, but I'm not sure. I feel like maybe it's still way too early to really say what album of the year is for me, but um, there are parts that I think actually are kind of catchy. This album, in comparison to The Origin of My Depression, it's pretty catchy in comparison to that, in my opinion. And I agree that you do get some of that hope there in that title track at the end with Impossible Light, Golden Flower. That actually makes me pretty happy, again, in comparison to The Origin of My Depression, which has none of that. There's like no hope at the end. And so hearing extreme music made by just anyone in the trans community that actually does have hope here at the end at all is like pretty meaningful and powerful. Um, I actually, when I was writing notes for all of these albums, I found what in my mind is a through line to like compare all of these albums. And one of the things I was thinking about was like a sort of musical puritanism, if that sort of exists. Because maybe we talked about this on the last episode, but the way Impossible Light relates to the through line is that it actually does combine electronic music with metal in a pleasing way. And I think that that's pretty hard to do. But in the last like 10 years or so, especially with like the body and all the like girlies like Emma Ruth Rundle and Lingua Ignota, Kristen Hayter, and Ethel Cain, you get these like artists who make extremely big sounding music that incorporate electronic elements. And in the early like 2000s, you had people trying to mix like deathcore and dubstep, and it was just like fucking horrible, like deathstep.
I missed that.
And like I think that
There's also
Impossible,
transcore.
sure, sure. I think Impossible
Yeah, like
Light,
trance music.
trance, yeah, put you in a trance, but also has like
Yeah.
gutturals or something.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
like metalcore with like house music or something.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there's a different artist. This is like a tangent, but there's a different artist called Disfiguring the Goddess, who, you know him? Okay, so when I was like a little kid, I found Disfiguring the Goddess on YouTube or something, because he was a fill-in vocalist for Abominable Putridity for a small amount of time. He went on to make dubstep music under the name Big Chocolate. And now Disfiguring the Goddess like still exists and he's like making new music, but it's just the shittiest, like worst combination of electronic music and slam combined to the point where it actually like becomes profound in a
It
weird
loops
way.
back around.
Yeah. It really does. But anyway, Impossible Light is like one of my favorite examples of metal and electronic music coexisting peacefully, when in a lot of cases it just does not do that, in my opinion. It also has Charlie Looker guest vocals, who is main dude of Extra Life. He does lead vocals on the song Jawline, and he also got
I noticed
Hayla.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Not that long ago, Charlie interviewed Xandra on his like podcast, and she's like a huge fucking nerd. She talked forever, and but it was all really cool. But
Is that where she was wearing a KO. Choirs of the Eye shirt?
yeah,
Love that. Love
Yeah.
that so much.
it was cool seeing her talk about like Doom wads and Charlie just like not know what to say. Like I felt like he got his like ass beat a little bit because he's like, I'm old, I don't know what the fuck this is. But yeah, I really loved it. It's really good. Um, one of my favorite examples of combining metal with electronic music. It's big and passionate. It makes me happy to hear her making music that has a sliver of hope. Yeah, really liked it.
Well, what's your theory about musical puritanism or something?
Yeah. So this
You
is
mentioned it. I want you to go deeper.
well, I will reference this with all of that. Like I said, I wrote for like 3 hours or so after I got my chores done here, but my
All right.
through line here is that electronic music and metal music have had some of the same growing pains as they've like become genres. I'll read what I wrote. Artists in both genres have attempted to intellectualize their music, I think, because there is like a amorphous musical puritanism that has carried over from when music was largely non-secular. An example of that is going from electronic dance music to intelligent dance music, and then metal into progressive metal, which is just a name that itself kind of implies that, like, I guess the quality of metal increases, like if it sounds more like Dream Theater or something. And the second note of that is I think that we become jaded when our personal preferences begin to evolve into our own brands of puritanism or musical puritanism. Like, if X doesn't sound like Y, then it's bad. And you become old when you let your purity deny you like new opportunities, new experiences, new learning, or like you refuse to listen to something because it doesn't fit into your musical puritanism. Like ska for me.
I think that's I think that's a cool point. And I think, people say like we're shaped musically by the music we listen to like when we're, I don't know, 15 years. Damn, did I cut?
Just for a couple
Yeah,
seconds, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, so I was saying, like you're shaped musically by the music you were listening to when you were like 15 years old or something. And most people don't evolve from that, and they just like it's like, I guess, comfort food for music. They just go
yeah,
back to what they know and don't really care to seek out new music and new genres and new experiences. Uh, they go back to the old reliable, like that SpongeBob meme. And
yeah.
yeah, so does that like kind of hit the same spot as what you were saying with your theory?
Yeah, definitely. Like there's a point in which having a personal taste in music can become just like a feeling of rejecting something by default. And I think that like everyone has their own form of preference, but I think that to have a preference, it kind of implies like you really like something, but you are still open to things that are not that thing or may not even resemble the thing that you like the most. But if you were puritanical about it, then you cannot enjoy something unless it resembles this thing that you like the most. And I think that in terms of course, just in taste, we all have it. But like my joke here is that I, for the most part, hate when electronic music and metal music, people attempt to combine them in a way because it rarely works. And the like exceptions to the rule being stuff like The Body, Plebeian Grandstand's last album had some electronic stuff that was really cool. Haxon Cloak, I mean, he did electronic stuff for The Body, but like Lingua, Emma Ruth Rundle, Chelsea Wolfe, the girlies are doing it in a really cool way. I like that. But then also with the Kilter album, I tend to feel like there's no metal that's really all that jazzy, because their sensibilities clash in a way that it's hard to make them coexist and feel like both the jazz and the metal are shining, or it it often just doesn't feel emotionally coherent. But I still ended up liking the Kilter album a lot. So I was really surprised by Pleroma and La Suspendida both. So I'm excited to talk about all the bands. But
Well,
yeah.
what you were saying is basically like it's xenophobia, right? It's like fear of new or other thing, things you don't know. And I think there's some parallel to draw between like the music, like musical xenophobia, I guess, and just general xenophobia. I mean, if I don't know much about, I don't know, country music, which is kind of true, all right. Well, I'm kind of xenophobic against, country music, right? But, it's just, if you're trying to open yourself and just like go towards more country music, dig deep into country music, that don't just get the like surface level stuff. That's usually not pretty good. All genres are combined, right? The surface level stuff is usually pretty bad. But if you dig deep, you'll eventually like find something you like, even though it's something that you had like a negative feelings towards at first.
I'm reminded of Michael Caine in Austin Powers 3, where he said, "There's two things I hate in the world: people who are intolerant of other cultures and the Dutch." It's like there are two things Bishop hates: people who are closed-minded about music and ska.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that it like this album made me think about was the need for certain artists, or like artists in certain genres, the need for them like feeling like they need to defend or make a case for their intelligence, I think is kind of interesting. Um, I wrote that like in the 2010s, when there were thousands of bands like Animals as Leaders, Periphery, Between the Buried and Me, etc., attempting to, and occasionally, or in the eyes of some, like very often, succeeding in, they succeeded in intellectualizing metalcore type music by like adding synths and clean vocals, or like planets and stars to their like album covers. There were also people attempting to combine the dying fad of early deathcore, shitty MySpace brutal death metal, with the new immensely popular American dubstep like Skrillex. And that's where you got like death step and shit. But metal is like, so electronic music with IDM, and then metal with progressive metal, they're both like, with electronic music, there's still a bunch of people who say you're not a real musician. That's not real music because you didn't play an instrument. And there are still people who, they hear metal music and they say that's not music, it's just noise or whatever. And like, in one way I can sympathize with people, especially older people, who maybe feel like that, because like Black Sabbath debut was 1970, and then Cannibal Corpse debut was 1990. So if you were 20 when that Black Sabbath album came out, and then you have a kid 20, and like 20 years later they show you Cannibal Corpse, you're just like, what the fuck that. Like, that's too much, fuck that, I don't want that. So I think that kind of thing is cyclical and happens all the time. But yeah, for some reason I just went very head ass with it today. I didn't even mean to. It was just, I was inspired to do that, I guess.
Cool, man.
So this is my first time hearing Uboa, and I enjoyed the album. Uh, it's not really something I'd listen to that often, being very noise driven and ambient. But it is a good album. It's very well well done and consistent. So I did enjoy this album.
Do you feel like it's like reaches out to your progressive rock sensibilities?
Yeah, I picked up some kind of progressive sensibility in it. It's definitely probably the least progressive of the bunch of these four albums, but there was some in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sappy. It's like music that sound to me, it sounds like really wet all the time. Like, it's got a bunch of reverb on it. It's like kind of groany, the drums sound really big. I could almost imagine it like you're blasting in the rain, maybe, you know? Kind of has a blasting in the rain type vibe at times. Like sliding down the wall, you know? It kind of has that vibe to it, to me.
One thing that you had mentioned that I wanted to pick up on is but both of us said something about how this album kind of ends on what we interpret to be a hopeful note. And being the sort of labor that this album was that Xandra talks about, I think if this album didn't end on a hopeful note, it probably just never would have existed.
Yeah.
Because in
Yeah.
2019, you go the origin of my depression, and that's like, all right, we're diving in, we're going to hell on this album basically. And now with Impossible Light, it's like there needed to be. It's 5 years later. There has to be like we're working our way through it. We're coming out of this. We can't just
Mhm.
stay down in the muck. Now, I can't speak personally to the trans experience at all, but it has to be a brutal road to walk. And, it's good to see somebody still walking it and fighting through it and surviving and making art like this and being able to share their journey with us.
Definitely.
On the more hopeful side, it's there's also another album of electronic music. It's more like, I guess it's more like progressive EDM or something like that. But there's Gia Eros. I don't know if I'm pronouncing their name right, but they got a few albums that are really great pieces of ambient stuff with some more rhythmic parts, but it's definitely like a name you should check out. And also, while we're on the point of electronic music, I'd like to mention that Oscob album, Junkie, which is, you mentioned like a descent into hell, and that's a descent into hell, like in musical form, and it's brilliant. I don't really mind, like I don't really care about the other stuff Oscob has made, but that Junkie album is like scary shit.
I had never heard of this. I'll check this out.
Yeah, kind of, I don't know, it kind of devolves into this haunting, like harsh noise stuff, like just like how it's the journey of, like, I guess a junkie that dies or something like that, but it, it
Okay.
just it just starts off relatively normal and then just like devolves into like a really like it's a scary noise, man. It's
It
scary.
does the caretaker strategy. You know the caretaker, like an empty bliss beyond this
Alex,
world, and then
6 hour album.
yeah, yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
And The Reticent, the Oubliette by The Reticent, also,
Oh
where you
yeah.
slip dementia as the album goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that album was good, man.
I'm surprised you don't know that caretaker one because a lot of kids like ended up finding it. It got really popular on like social media and stuff, but that dude has been making music under the name The Caretaker for a super long time, and all of his music is just meant to be, I guess, like a musical. Suppose it's inspired by dementia, and he made this six CD album going through the stages of dementia, where yeah, like the beginning is pretty normal sounding, and then by the end it's just like completely deconstructed. And
Wow.
yeah, a lot of people, and that was pretty cool that a lot
It's
of
almost
kids.
there's almost nothing left by the end of it.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was really cool though. It's cool when the kids find something good. I'm glad when the kids, like, that's what I'm talking about. We've been loving on the caretaker forever. I'm glad y'all found that. But I'll check out
Well,
Oscop.
yeah.
I
Well,
did want to
a good
say,
segue, I think, is going into Extra Life, since, Charlie Looker has interviewed Uboa and sung on their album. So
Yeah.
Let's roll with it.
All right. Extra Life put out an album this year called The Sacred Vowel. Um, this is a band that I had multiple friends tell me that I would really love because I'm super into some neo folk stuff. Like I like Coil a lot, and I like Current 93 and Throbbing Gristle kind of was, shared members of Coil. And Charlie Looker, main dude from Extra Life, is really inspired by guys like that. He's a little freak. I've only actually listened to two Extra Life albums, so I'm a fake fan. I admit that. But I'm a new fake fan as of now. I listened to Secular Works Volume 2. That's what I started with, and I loved it. And then I listened to the Sacred Vowel. Sacred Vowel, this is an album that it makes you want to look up, at least for me. Again, like we talked about lyrics last episode. You hear these lyrics and you think, what is this guy talking about? Is he a sexually horny pervert or not? Is he a weird freak or not? What is he saying? So you want to look him up. Then you go to look him up. You look up Charlie Looker, find out he's got a damn YouTube channel. Okay. He's got videos talking about Death in June and Current 93 in what I think is a pretty fair way, because those are some controversial bands, or at least Death in June is, for good reason. I think he was decently fair talking about them. He's got an interview with the Glyptoglossio vocalist, another fucking weirdo. You're like, that is a fucking weirdo. Okay? So these two guys talking to each other, like, I found out that Charlie had a YouTube channel by just looking up on my own time if there were any Glyptoglossio interviews, because I love them too. And when I pieced all of this together and realized that he was also a member of Z's, that just like sold it for me, because I liked Z's in high school and I hadn't thought of them in a while. But also with my through line here about intellectualizing music, whatever, what I wrote here is that I think that Charlie almost does an inverse here. Rather than attempting to intellectualize metal music, he takes some of the allegedly, well, like Western classical music is maybe one of the most guilty genres of insisting that it is intellectual in the first place. And he will take inspiration from ancient music and classical music, and he makes it stupid and like embarrassing. He makes the informal, or no, I'm sorry, he makes the formal informal. And I think that's kind of cool. It's almost like being inspired by it, but it's also this form of iconoclasticism almost. To be like, I'm inspired by this, pure, largely religious music, and then he's gonna say "come" like in the first 10 seconds on his new album. And I know that Matt, we were talking about the lyrics. I know Matt hears the word "come" on this album and he's saying, get that "come" out of here. I don't want to hear about "come" on this album. And I get it, because I hear it too, and I'm like, yeah, why would you say that? Why would you say this? But I kind of like it, because if you watch any videos of him, he knows that it's subversive in a way.
Well, maybe playing devil's advocate here, but I feel like he's more than classical music. I feel like he's playing an homage to early music, which is like early classical music, but mostly
Oh yeah,
inspired by like folk tunes, I guess, of medieval era.
yeah, yeah,
And the folk tunes were really like, I don't know how you say that, like body.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like gross, just like talking about sex and everything that, people would do in the Middle Ages, I guess. And maybe that's kind of bringing that back into another context, which, looks weird to us, but maybe that's what he was going for. What do you think?
He has a video that he uploaded recently where he's talking about his favorite lyricists, and he talks about his own lyrics, and he says something along the lines of like going through a phase of writing music and then ruining it with the lyrics, writing stuff that he thinks is like cringe or something. He describes early Extra Life as proto cringe and like owning up to cringe in a way, which I want to, before Matt says anything, I want to say this too, which is that there is like an extremely fine line to walk if you're going to do that. If you're going to make music that is intentionally subversive or like touchy or racy or something, you always run the risk of just coming off as genuinely cringe or genuinely bad or unlistenable if you're writing music that is in some way like aware of other music, if that makes sense. I don't necessarily think that it's a critique of other music just on its face. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about "come" in the first line of the very first song on your album, there are people who will not have the response of, "This dude's a weirdo. I need to look him up." There will be people who will be like, "I don't want to hear that right now," which is a fair assessment of the music. I also think maybe my last little bit here that I wrote is that if James Maynard knew way more about God, he would fear God, and Tool's music would sound more like Extra Life. If Charlie Looker knew way less about God, he'd be angry at God, and Extra Life would sound way more like Tool.
Damn.
I think that's kind of true.
That's a hot take.
Well, I think it's kind of accurate. It's like pretty complex rhythmically a lot, which even if there were no vocals, I still think that I would enjoy the music a good bit because it's pretty interesting just musically on its own. And he's talking about, some weird thing. Tool's talking about some weird thing, some trippy thing. But Maynard's mad at God. Charlie is like fucking scared of God, I think.
Maynard's mad at vegans too.
Yeah, and that's why, no comment even, you know? So I like this album a lot. I actually think that the lyrics are extremely good. Let me look at this track list.
The
really
Wormy
quick.
Weekend.
The Wormy Weekend, I get it.
I don't.
And another thing that he talks about in that video about lyrics is being inspired by like Twitter. I feel like Wormy Weekend or just worminess. It was like a meme or something that went around on Twitter. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like
what I got out of it was that they were earworms, and where each worm was named like "what if," "why not," "fuck it." They were like different earworms that were like infecting your brain and like telling you what to do. So that's kind of thinking deeper into it rather than just physical actual worms.
Oh, definitely. I think
Yeah.
that Three Worms is a song just like about addiction.
Yeah.
It's just about addiction. And honestly,
Or
when
even
we
anxiety. I mean, I don't see anything in it that's necessarily connected to addiction. It's all these like invasive, intrusive thoughts.
the what if, why not, fuck it. If not addiction, then just I interpreted that song as a person who has some sort of quality that they are trying to suppress. The what if is like the temptation to, either relapse or just to do whatever the action is that the character knows that they should not do. The line of bury all that work you did and start again from nothing. The what if is the temptation. The why not is the like giving into the temptation, and then the fuck it is like giving into the temptation, not only that, but not even feeling guilty for doing it.
This is just me now.
Yeah, like it's your right to do the thing that, has maybe been causing you problems. Yeah. That's my take. It's good. I love it.
Matt?
You want me to go next? Because I have a lot to say.
Okay, Jeff.
I guess I could go next. So this was again my first time hearing this Extra Life in general, and I'm gonna say it with all these albums because I hadn't heard any of these bands prior. But yeah, the lyrics definitely caught me by surprise in like the first line of the first song, mentioning "come" and all that, and uh, the vocal style is definitely unique, going off that medieval influence and everything. And I I really enjoyed when we got to the Three Worms song. It was just like, okay, now I kind of get this. Like the lyrics just kind of like, okay, I see what they're doing now. And then the title track, The Sacred Vowel, was the most like progressive and most just like a prog song, and that was the one that kind of pulled it all together for me. Like, okay, I can get into this now. Like this is something I'm more familiar with. But as a whole, I did enjoy it. It was just definitely caught me by surprise and definitely unique.
What do you think the sacred vowel is? Which one is it?
That's a good
I think
question.
it's
I haven't listened to it like that deeply. I don't really
See,
listen to the lyrics too much, except the lyrics pretty stand out pretty well in this album.
I mean, just with the album art, it must be like O,
Oh
right?
yeah.
I'd go with the
hmm.
blended AE,
It's probably not W.
the Welsh.
See, I think that the sacred vowel might be a book. I don't actually know that, but I assumed that the sacred vowel was I, and that the songs are, about yourself or just the self, if you really want to, be head ass. Sometimes I feel embarrassed to go head ass mode, but like I I also love to do it too. But it could be O also, yeah, because I mean it's lots of lyrics about the body, and the first song talking about just the anus. That whole first song is just about like butthole. Okay, it's talking about butthole and cum. Okay, we get it. And maybe the album, yeah, it could be O too. It's either I or O.
The album
Probably
art's just a gaping anus, right?
could be, could be. And Matt doesn't like that. So explain it. Explain it. Talk your shit now.
So you alluded to it, which is that. So I'm a very, aside from caring about lyrics in general, I also have some particularities that music I just don't engage with. I'm not going to listen to anything that's explicitly satanic just because of my own faith. I'm just there's plenty of other stuff out there. I'm not going to do that. And I'm also going to try not to listen to stuff that is like replete with profanity. Like I'll
Mm.
accept a word here and there if there's other stuff going on, but a band
Like
that's
Limp
just like
Bizkit, right?
right. I mean, I might listen to that ironically, but when I'm looking for like sincerity in my music, I'm judging your lyrics. And if all you're doing is spouting
Yeah.
profanity at me, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I'm going to go listen to something with you know, a little bit more cleverness and intelligence. And so Charlie Looker is looking at a person like me and directly spiting me with these lyrics because, and I'll sort of get more into this, they are vulgar, right? With the cum and the butthole stuff and all that going on, but they are undeniably extremely clever. And I hate
Yes,
that because I want to
yes,
this album made me so angry. And I think that's exactly what he was trying to evoke. Because so when
yes.
I didn't hear about this first from you. I heard about this because Toby Driver plays bass on this from KO.
Yeah.
And so I'm friends with Toby online, and I'll see every project that he's involved with. He's like, here's a thing I'm on. And I'm like, okay. And I'll check it all out. But like a lot of the stuff he does is sort of like, you know, the Secret Chiefs 3, I feel like I'm supposed to like, but it's never clicked with me. And I thought maybe this would be in that realm of just like, yeah, this is, you know, it's cool he played bass on it, but it's not my thing. I go to the Bandcamp and I click on the lyrics and Narcissus face inverted in his pool of cum. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to listen to this album. I don't need to hear that. I'm already out. Like, that's such a dumb, stupid way why would you put that? And so I hadn't even heard the music yet. I have no relationship to this project or Charlie Looker. I had no idea, neo folk, chamber music, whatever. I had no clue. But lyrics like this sort of paint a picture of what the song is going to be. It's going to be goofy. It's going to not take itself seriously. I prefer music that takes itself seriously, even on the extreme end of that, where it's almost
Or
cheesy how serious it is.
or like too seriously too.
Exactly. Like that's,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I'm on board with. So when I see somebody who's willing to write lyrics like this, I'm just like, oh, this is not my thing. So when I finally sat down, I was like, fine, I'll check it out. I couldn't believe that the music of that first track was the music that was accompanying these lyrics. What? Like, this is, and the sincerity with which the lyrics are delivered. Like, he is taking this seriously. It's the dumbest lyrics I've ever seen, and he's taking it dead serious in the way he's delivering it. And you mentioned that, like, you would probably be interested in this still, even if it was instrumental. I don't know, because Charlie's vocals are like such a key part of all of the compositions of this album. Like, there are times where there's really barely anything else going on, and it's just all stripped down and him belting out sometimes a really dumb line. But like, I don't know, this track and the Worms track are a bit silly, but all the other tracks, they do have really high quality lyrics. And you recommended, you know, when you were trying to encourage me to get into this, that I go back and look at secular works, and that album didn't have anything nearly as silly and ridiculous and vulgar as this one. And so I was like, I'm on board with this. Like, this guy sounds really smart and clever and you know, a good lyricist. So why is he now talking about cum? I don't know. But I forced myself to get through this album. And then, as Jeff pointed out, the last track, I mean, my gosh, that's an incredible song. I was blown away with the climax, the sacred vow. That's amazing.
Dude.
You could bottle that moment. That's like album of the year type songwriting right there. It's just like, oh, there's so much good stuff. So, I mean, when I'm able to appreciate, so his vocals are amazing. The compositions are great. They're very like, there's a fluidity to them. There's like a heaving rhythm on the Sacred Vow, the title track, that's like not grid snapped. And I love anything that sounds not grid snapped.
It's tricky.
I'm always trying to accomplish that with my own music. And it's the hardest thing in the world to do as a solo artist, because you don't get the vibe of like people together feeding off of each other. But the violin performances on this, just so rich and intricate and deep. Which is not the last time we'll say that on one of the albums in this conversation. But just, if you just pretend there aren't any dumb lyrics, this album is unbelievably good. And so I had to admit that. And I mean, I go back and I've been listening to the last track just a lot. I mean, it's so good. I got to give it to Charlie. Oh, and the other thing is like the sort of Charlie winking at me thing. In the Sacred Vow, he has the line, God moves through something dumb. And I'm like, he knows that this lyrical choice making that he's doing can still convey meaning. And he's doing it so purposefully. I'm like, daggone it, man. You got me. I got to give it to you.
Super smart. And I definitely know that I am especially susceptible to if I think that the person who is making the music that I enjoy, if I find them to be enjoyable people just by the way that they speak, or like if I've ever spoken to them in person or something, it will increase my likelihood to, if not just enjoy their music, it will give me a greater benefit of the doubt for things that I feel are questionable in their music.
Hmm.
And the way that, at least the way that he presents himself in his videos, makes him seem relatable to me. Like he has a whole video about like his weird struggle with like addiction, and he wrote this like whole like paper on it, and it's like kind of relatable, not extremely relatable, but relatable in a sense. And hearing his opinions being like being able to listen to controversial music or just strange music or whatever, like Death in June in that case, being able to listen to music like that and be like, I think that this song is cool, but there you have to also consider the art plus the artist. There's not really a truly separating art and artist, but you should be fair with yourself or honest with yourself to be aware of both of them. They just seemed like, generally speaking, pretty fair takes. And yeah, it increased, it made me like the music more, just hearing him talk. Um, uh, Matt, are you religious? Are you Catholic?
Christian, but a weird type of Christian.
Fair enough. And yeah, I think that his music definitely also is like I said, I think that he is like knows a lot about God and is afraid of God in a way, but does write about just very human feelings at the same time, albeit in a super crude way. Um, so yeah, I don't blame you or anyone for looking at these lyrics and being like, I'm gonna listen to that with headphones, so that no one else in my house hears that. Um, I can't blame you at all. It's all of that is like a totally fair take, for sure.
Well, I guess I'm gonna be the outlier here. I
Let's hear
didn't
it.
like the album, right?
Let's
But
go.
I don't know, man. I don't have much to say. I like Charlie Looker, all right? He's a cool dude. He's super intelligent and he knows a lot of stuff about music, okay? So I've been into his albums since I think Simple Answers, and that's from his solo projects, and it's from 2018. And then there's been like Psalm Zero with Sparta, which was really great too. Seven Tears or Seven Tears, Older Than Love. I think it was good too. I have pretty much no memory of that, but it was pretty good, I think. And my first brush with Extra Life was with Secular Works too. And I thought I liked the album, right? But then with The Sacred Vowel, I really didn't like the album. Okay, and I'm not like it's not because of the lyrics, right? I'm much more of a music guy first. Like basically, I just don't listen to the lyrics at all, except if they're really in my face, like the Wormy Weekend bit, which really annoyed me. But other than that, I just didn't find the album really I don't know, interesting to me, really catchy. And I think it has to do with the fact that it's more, I guess it's more ethereal, more neo folk. And I went back to Secular Works too, because I was like, I think I was thinking I liked that album. I had a good impression of Extra Life, right? So I went back to Secular Works too, and that album's really good. I love it. I think the distinction is that like Secular Works 2 has more riffs. It's more like a
It's
prog
way
rock.
heavier.
Yeah, right. It's more of a prog rock album or noise rock with that ancient music or folk singing technique with a lot of melisma. And I mean, I really like that album. I listened to it like completely, and went back to the Sacred Vowel again, and I'm like, no, that's not for me. That's not for me. And I don't know. I didn't catch on the lyrics first because I'm not that kind of guy. But the musically, I didn't vibe with the album. Even the last song, I th you mentioned that you really liked the last song, but I think it was annoying to me that chorus that you mentioned. Like that's a chorus I didn't like. So yeah, I'm sorry to be the killjoy, but
No,
I like
dude.
Extra Life a bit heavier and with I guess more riffs and I guess that's just me, right?
Yeah, definitely. Don't say sorry. So again, like I said, I'm a new and fake fan, and Secular Works was their reunion album after like 10 years. And I think that their first full-length album was just Secular Works 1, and I haven't listened to that, but maybe Secular Works Volume 2, maybe they kind of went back and like maybe they were heavier back in the day because I mean, I would think that in 2012, either Z's had just broken up or like only existed for a couple more years after that. And Z's was pretty heavy. If you ever listen to them, they seem
Yeah.
like a band. Yeah, they seem like a band that you would like.
Yeah, they're
Um,
crazy good.
yeah. Um, so yeah, dude, don't say sorry because yeah, it's music that is made with the intention of not like I would say that it's not like oh it's meant to be like have a like purely shock value or anything, but yeah, it's a ton of components that can be hard to swallow unless for some reason the stars have aligned for that to like seem kind of refreshing to you. And I think Secular Works Volume 2 is definitely way heavier than The Sacred Vowel. Big agree on that.
I need to check that out then.
Me too.
Coming Apart, track 2, Secular Works, one of like it entered like top 100 songs for me. I love that song. Crazy, crazy good. So do check it out.
Yeah, it's a crazy good album. And check out Simple Answers too.
I got to. Yeah, I will.
All right. Should we move on to the next album?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Jeff?
All right. So the next album is Orgone's Pleroma album. And this is the first time I've heard this band. Apparently, they have been inactive for over 10 years. Their last album being The Joyless Parson, uh, which I've only listened to a little bit. I've listened to their old stuff as much as I could find, but focused mostly on this new album. And they're also not to be confused with the band from LA that's like a funk psych rock band, which I haven't even listened to either. But the name is spelled the same. But I really enjoyed this album. It's got heaviness, it's got prog, uh, it's got jazz, it's mixture of clean vocals and uh, harsh vocals. And now I don't, like I've said before, I don't really focus on the lyrics as much as like Bishop, but growl and harsh vocals, that's even less of a focus because I most of the time can't even really understand what they're saying. So, and then a lot of the clean vocals on this album were uh, sung in French, like in a different language. So the lyrics weren't really standing out to me for the most part, but musically, it went a lot of places and ticked a lot of boxes for me. in the prog and metal areas, and the title track Pleroma was probably my favorite. There's like a lot of good riffs in that song, even some kind of Mars Volta vibes in kind of the guitar tone I had found. So that really surprised me, and I just really enjoyed it as a whole, both the heavy and soft and clean parts. So I'm interested to see what else you guys picked up from this album, but this was definitely my favorite of the four that we listened to.
Yeah, just like you, I didn't know the band before, and I think it's Matt that shared this one on the music chat we got. And I listened to that, and it kind of blew my mind. It's really good. For some reason, though, they have like three songs that you can't stream online. So I don't know what's up with that. But anyway, the whole album is very good. Uh, and not very good in the sense that it's made by Matt Very. Just like it's just very good on its own right. And yeah, it's kind of like, well, just look at their Bandcamp tags, right? They got black metal, death metal, concert music, ethnic folk, and jazz. So that kind of tells you a little bit about their influences and the kind of breadth you need to expect with that album. It's got folk elements, like kind of folk metal and just like folk music too. And they got like jazzy stuff, I guess. But when people say jazz metal, it's never really jazz that they mean. It's more like they use a saxophone or something like that. But it's still in there, and yeah, it's kind of like I guess if old Opeth was listening to, I don't know, what would they be listening to create that kind of blend of genres? I mean, I guess if they had a sax player and they played in a combo jazz in music school or something like that.
Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Sorry?
Mahavishnu Orchestra influence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Like if Michael Ockerfeld listened to Mahavishnu Orchestra, maybe they made like a Pleroma or Orgone
I
or something
wish
like
he
that.
had, instead of listening to Camel so much, and then we wouldn't have had to suffer through Heritage.
Man, I liked Heritage.
So bad.
I go back and forth on it.
I liked Heritage. Like after that, like Pale Communion, I didn't really care. But Heritage, it was pretty good. Sure, it was how do you say that? It didn't speak to everyone because like everyone has their expectations with Opeth, right? And then they kind of just went the other way around. And but I was kind of not disappointed, but just like confused at first when I listened to Heritage. But I listened to it again and again, and eventually I kind of came to liking it on its own merits,
And now
right?
they're back with the growl vocals with a new single they
Yeah,
released.
that's exciting.
I've barely ever listened to Opeth. I don't know, like I couldn't tell you really what they sound like. Uh,
Well,
I know.
imagine Orgone without all the interesting parts.
I don't think there's really that much connection. Orgone to me is like, when they're doing metal, they're sort of in a sort of psyopus, cleric almost, not quite, but that sort of like really intense, really busy technical side of things. And Opeth's
Yeah,
never been that busy.
Yeah.
Opeth is
no.
like progressive and groovy and dark. Orgone is just like lightning fast riffs at you like rapid fire.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
And
It
yeah,
actually,
much more abrupt transitions between the heavy and the soft
a lot
than
less to
Opeth does.
latch onto. And that was what I
Yeah.
struggled with the first two or three times I listened to this album. I was like, I'm certain this is good, but it's just not like sticking with me. I can tell that it's really creative. you can breathe when the music breathes, when it goes away from the metal and it goes into like the lilting French female vocals with some
Yeah.
ethnic jazz folk stuff going on. You're like, this is brilliant. I love this. When it goes back to the metal, it's a jarring transition, partially because of the way it's mixed. It's quite a thin metal mix, I think, because it's in service of, they play a lot of high neck guitar riff stuff a lot of the time.
Yeah.
That's part of what makes it hard to latch onto, and part of that is that the mixing is balanced in that way. But 4 or 5 listens, it did start to sink in, and I was like, okay, there's something here. There's a tremendous flow to the album, where if you're not listening to the Bandcamp version with a couple tracks missing, there's a full rip on YouTube. There might actually be 2 different ones.
Yeah.
And I actually have the high res files if anyone wants them.
It's on there. But there's interludes, and then there's longer pieces. There's the little 2-minute interludes, and then there's the 17-minute. That was the first song I heard, was the 17-minute. What was it? Trawling, traversing the depth, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Trawling depths.
Trawling the depths. And my initial reaction to that song was like, did this earn its 17 minutes? Like, when it was done, I was like, what just happened? Like, where did that take me on a journey? I don't quite know. And I still don't quite know. But in the larger context of the album, where track divisions aren't as meaningful because everything flows, it's fine. It's good. And I'm starting to come around on, like, sinking my teeth into what they are giving me instead of maybe what I wish they were giving me. They're like so they have the trajectory, like the band Wake, where they came out of being a grindcore band,
Yeah,
and settled into a more post-metal influenced, progressive influenced style of death metal. That that trajectory has turned out some really cool stuff, because if you have the chops to play grind, and then you choose to use that power in a little bit more restrained and careful way, you can produce some really, really interesting material. And that's what they've done here. And then, you blend in the orchestral instruments, the violin and the horns. There's trumpets on, the last couple of tracks, I think. Just, this album really sounds like it took 10 years to create, with the gap between albums. I first heard of them when The Joyless Parson came out, because I'm friends with Andrew Millar from Patrons of the Rotting Gate, fellow metal solo project, and he is a huge Orgone fan. So he was like raving when that album came out, and I listened to it and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, this is good. But they put some real heart and energy and creativity into Pleroma, and it shows.
Yeah, I was very surprised by this. I had never heard of this band, and it is a little confusing who all worked on it, because the Bandcamp page for this does not say how many people actually worked on it. But it does say that it was recorded, mixed, and mastered by Matt Very. And I also thought that the first time I put this on, one of my immediate reactions was like, the mix is not bad, but it sounds weird. And I couldn't figure out what it was to me that made me think that it sounded weird. But I listened to this, I think 3 or 4 times all the way through, and I don't think that anymore. I think it sounds really good. And yeah, it is a little more trebly, probably because of the like world music parts and delicate singing parts. And like you said, they're high up on the neck a lot. Some of the guitar riffs actually reminded me of The Fall of Troy. It sounded like The Fall of Troy's Manipulator album to me, which I like a lot. That's like home base music for me. So some of the heaviest parts, they did register as almost mathcore, which was kind of strange. Or not strange, but at least unexpected. And I am glad that mathcore is not a tag on the Bandcamp, because if someone said this is mathcore plus world music, I'd be like, shut up, dude. Fuck that. But even just the fact that it is metal plus jazz or like world music, when I hear that someone has attempted to combine, or a band has attempted to combine these things, I'm extremely skeptical right off the bat. That's me being musically puritanical. But in my defense, I feel like there are not many examples where people have succeeded in doing it correctly, or even in a way that I think is uh, like feels, if not tasteful, then respectful. This feels tasteful somehow. I actually did not think that the transitions were, they're abrupt, but not, I don't feel like I have whiplash in a way that makes me uncomfortable. Another band it reminded me of a little bit was Blindfolded and Led to the Woods, kind of, because they have this weird, they're very heavy, but with Blindfolded and Led to the Woods specifically, they've got a lot of like major seven, major nine type stuff that I just associate with post hardcore. So it just sounds like post hardcore. Fall of Troy kind of has that, is post hardcore mathcore sound. So I was very surprised that I like this as much as I do. Um, 17-minute song alone, I think that's worth deeper like examination, just because writing an 18-minute song that is that dense.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, like you
it's
said,
dense.
like Matt said, I mean, like it really does sound like an album that could feasibly take 10 years to write and like perfect. Um, that track even actually has a little part that sounds like ska to me. I would have to find, I don't know the timestamp or
I
anything,
have
but
not picked up on that in my lessons.
there's a little ska part to me. I'll find it after we're done recording and I'll tell you, but that scared me. There are so many parts, especially in my first listen, there were so many moments where I was like, guys, what the fuck? Because like I'm gonna talk shit about this in 5 seconds if they don't do this right. And somehow every single thing that a ton of other bands have attempted to do and failed, this band has landed gracefully with all of the inspirations and abrupt changes and stuff. And I'm very impressed by it. Uh, it's pretty long. By the end, I'm like, okay, this is amazing. Still pretty long. So there are aspects of it that I remember, and maybe like one or two riffs that I can kind of remember, but it's too long to be catchy for a long time.
The thing is, it's long and it's dense. You know, they got both at once. Usually
Yeah.
albums of that, density, they're like 30 minutes long at most.
Yeah.
But this is like, I don't know, like 60, 70. It
63, I think,
it's
65.
really long. Yeah. And that's why, man, it's a really good album, but you really have to listen to it a lot of times to really, know it fully, right?
Yeah. And when it's that long, it's hard to want to do that. Um, but like I said, this album did so many things that I was ready to engage or employ my musical jadedness. I was ready to say, "Shut up, get it over with. I don't care." Great musician, but I don't care. And it surprised me for like however long the runtime is. That long, it surprised me every time. So I'm very impressed by this. It was very, very good.
So in a sense, that kind of mathcore part reminded me of Journal too. I don't know if you know the band.
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's kind of like technical mathcore, I guess. And their album on Lorgia, which is just like a switching of the letters of their band name. But anyway, that is like a concept album based on, I don't know, it's like inspired by old video games and stuff like that. They managed to get a few video game themes into their songs as leads or as riffs and stuff like that. And it's really incredible. It's an incredible album, but it's so packed. It's so packed and dense with concepts and ideas and riffs and all of that. And it's always changing. And they got multiple guest singers on that album. So it's just a lot of stuff to to digest. And it kind of makes me think of that. Orgone makes me think of Journal in that way.
Yeah, I've never heard of this, but yeah, I mean, 80 minutes long. I see what you're saying here.
Yeah. Well, there's also like an, I don't know, 20-minute outro or something like that. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
you know I love a 20-minute outro. Yeah, 30 minutes. 30
30,
minute
right?
outro.
Let's go.
Yeah, affinity, right? Affinity is basically just I think it's like an orchestral track
Oh, you know I love a
with
30-minute orchestral outro track
with narration.
with narration.
Yeah,
Come on.
you're gonna love it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, all
Good
right.
recommendation.
That album has a song called "Festooned with Snakes." Why would you?
Oh
Who
man, it's
uses
so
that
I
word?
good.
like that. I like that.
That song is so good.
I like that.
All right, it's a really nerdcore shit.
I think that being pleasantly surprised or shocked by liking something is a good transition into the next album for sure. Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm bringing up La Suspendida, the new album and pretty much like experience from the Kilter trio, which is basically a trio. And yeah, so that album has been long in the works for them. They've made a Kickstarter, I think, or GoFundMe campaign for making the album. I was broke, so I didn't give it a single penny, but I was hoping that some other more wealthy people would donate. And I guess they did because the album's out right now. And basically that's a collaboration with uh, Andromeda Anarchia, which is like a classically trained opera metal singer, screamer. She's great, and she sang in multiple projects, and it's always really good. And on the album, there's also the Seven Sons Quartet, which kind of specializes on doing, metal music or mathcore music on a string quartet. Like they made the what's that Dillinger Escape Plan album on the quartet, and
Calculating Infinity.
yeah, Calculating Infinity and a lot of other stuff too. And there's also like the implication of the Growlers Choir, which is a Montreal-based choir of growling persons. And fun fact, they are hired by the game industry to create like monster voices in some games. So it's really cool. It's a cool stuff. And it's a cool project, and a lot of cool people are in it, and they make great stuff. And so, yeah, like we mentioned, it's kind of like a jazz metal opera, but it's jazz in the sense that Apocalyptica is classical music, right? It's in the same sense. Like it's not jazz. It's just like a jazz band playing metal music, playing prog metal in that case. Um, I didn't feel like there was really any true jazz in it, but it gets the meaning across anyway if you just say a jazz metal band, right? And yeah, so La Suspendida is the story of a girl, which is I guess I think it's a true story, right? So it's I think a Cuban girl or at least a Hispanic girl, and she has like tuberculosis and moves to Florida and something like that, and in the 30s or 20s, and she's taken care of by that doctor, Dr. Tensler, and he kind of becomes obsessed with her, and then eventually she dies of tuberculosis, but the guy keeps her body and kind of goes full on necrophiliac with it. So yeah, it's that story which is really unsettling.
It's what happens when you move to Florida.
Yeah,
It
I
was a
guess.
big mistake. Big mistake.
Florida man keeps a girl a girl's body for
Big mistake.
years. Yeah. And so uh yeah, so that's a story that's been taken a lot of times and written and all of that. And it's been used in many other metal songs because, that's a really metal story, right? But what they did with it, it's kind of interesting. They kind of switched the perspective on it. Like usually just like, oh, there's that guy, he's fucked up. He's a not a serial killer, but he's a necrophiliac, right? But that story is like um, in Kilter's story, the girl, when she dies, she goes into like that purgatory, that kind of transient state between life and death. And she's like, she discovers that until Dr. The guy, until she until he sleeps with her, she doesn't really die. He's kind of insufflating life into her dead body. And so like it's that whole story of kind of empowerment, because in their story, I feel like it's her that is kind of bewitching the guy and kind of using her, I don't know, spiritual uh thing, aura, to keep the guy hooked on her. And yeah, so that she can stay in that limbo state and like avoid death until, eventually that guy too dies of just old age. And she has to like give up and just join the death club, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of their hot take on the story, and I think that's quite interesting. And there's that little book they sent out as promo for the album. I got the album as promo, and there was that little book too that explains all of that. It's kind of based on a short story written by a guy, I don't remember his name, but for exactly for that project. And then they created their lyrics based off of that. So yeah, it's a really interesting album. And musically, right, it's just Kilter. I love Kilter. It's just math metal, progressive metal with a lot of depth and rhythmic uh, uh, ingenuity, and that's really my jam. Yeah, you get me when you get like these weird rhythm and all of that. That's really where I'm home.
I will say that I actually I kind of thought that it did sound more like jazz than other bands who say that they are metal and jazz combined. I thought it sounded more like that than some other bands who claim that. At the same time, they don't have a guitar player. So like it's jazz that like they're okay, it's more like a dude is playing like metal riffs but just on a saxophone, which I think is in my mind closer to the sensibilities of jazz than metal. Um, so my thoughts on this were pretty short. If you can't handle me at my Kilter, the Suspended Woman EP 2023, then you do not deserve me at my Kilter, Andromeda, Anarchia, Growlers Choir, Seven Sons, La Suspendida LP 2024. Because a few weeks ago so Jeff was very kind and saved us time, made us like a playlist with all the albums put together. Kilter was like, I think the last thing on there. Dude, that fucking EP that is just like a fraction of the album with a fraction of the instruments. It's like an MTV unplugged version of like a fraction of the album. I was actually mad at how much I disliked it. Like I was ready to say, like if we were going to talk about that version on the last episode, I was going to say I nearly considered it like pointless music, like completely pointless. But I do remember thinking, even for the EP version, dude, the drummer is fucking good. Who is the drummer on this album? And it's Kenny Grahowski, who is the drummer of Imperial Triumphant and Andromeda Anarchia, which badass name, just badass name. It's a hilarious name. She's the vocalist of Folterkammer or whatever. That's the same guitarist as, it's Ezra from Imperial Triumphant. So it's like an Imperial Triumphant adjacent homie band. They're from New York too. Anything that Kenny Grahowski is on is elevated by almost like a full letter score, pretty much, because he really is that good. And incredible drummer. I was surprised to like this because opera plus anything, again, just like shut up, dude. Like, don't want to hear that. I had a note for the Orgone album that I feel like is actually more relevant here, but maybe y'all have seen this, maybe not. If you haven't, then I'm glad. But there's a metal YouTuber guy named Rob Scallon. He has this video that's jazz, but like D jazz, like combined. So it's gent plus jazz. I think that is maybe some of the worst music that has ever been made. And I'm not even a huge jazz guy and I am not a huge gent guy, but I appreciate both enough to hate that a ton. And so usually jazz plus metal, I am extremely skeptical of it, pretty much always. But it actually does feel like an opera. Because I can't tell what Andromeda or Miss Anarchia is, or Mrs. I don't know. I'm sorry. The most respectful thing, Andromeda Anarchia. Okay. I don't know what she is saying, but it is so like colorful and bombastic. It does feel like an opera. And the music, now that all of the musicians are there and the flow is actually, you can hear the flow. It's not, just part of the album. It is somehow good. I don't know how they've done that, but I haven't heard many operas. I've heard even fewer metal operas. Given that, I would say it's probably the best metal opera that exists and maybe will ever be written.
In Bishop's mind.
In my mind, yeah. It might be the best one or the only good one. Another thing that I thought was kind of intriguing is that Silent Pendulum put this out. And Silent Pendulum is a record label that puts out records from like bands that I really like just on my own. Like if you look at their artists, they've got Black Sheep Wall, Arsonists Get All the Girls, Admiral Angry, like I don't really care about Dr. Acula, but Heavy Heavy Lolo, love them. These are bands that are like stupid fucker guy bands. Like like beloved in mathcore scenes, but like number 12 looks like you. It's just a little surprising that they're on the same label as Kilter to me.
Yeah.
So shout out to Silent Pendulum for just having a strangely diverse roster.
And also like the album, the full album's nowhere to be found, right? You really have to buy the CD or to get it.
I say this, not that I know this, someone who isn't me found it on Soulseek, but it is not a 320 rip. And also the lyrics are not included in what I found. Maybe Jeff has it because he's an internet god. Do you have the full lyrics?
I don't. I just have what Dave sent us, which I guess was the pre-release promo of it.
Yeah, I probably sent you the promo, and I didn't send you the book I
No,
mentioned.
yeah. But
But I could
I do
if you
see on
want.
Bandcamp that you can buy it digitally for 9.99, and
Yeah.
even though you can only listen to 3 tracks on their Bandcamp page, I think you can buy the full album digitally.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, someone who isn't me, it is on Soulseek, but you will not get the lyrics. And the lyrics are like, if it's an opera, it's a full story, like a narrative story like you were describing. I would be curious to read that. I have not heard this story that you were describing. And were you saying that it's like gender swapped? Like it's a gender swapped
No,
story?
it's not gender swapped. It's like perspective swapped. So usually people tell that story from like the doctor, the necrophiliac doctor's perspective
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something. And but like he's like abusing like the corpse of that girl or
Yeah.
something. But in their story, it's like it's the girl that's kind of abusing the guy beyond death.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, that's their take on it.
Gotcha.
I think a key point that I didn't. So first of all, I didn't know that story behind it. I could tell there was a story, but I couldn't gather enough from the ground lyrics to piece it all together. And I didn't know this story beforehand about this weirdo
Yeah.
doctor. But I Googled him and read the Wikipedia while you guys were talking. Necrophilia is really underselling it. He dug up her corpse and lived with it for 7 years in his house.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, you can definitely think, okay, there's a lot of psychology and maybe spirituality to delve into of like what that was like for him, what that was like for her, if her spirit is, present in that scenario for 7 years and how she might
Yeah.
be tormenting him through the presence of her body, the addiction and obsession that he has to it. So I think I need to hear this album again now that I understand that context.
Yeah.
A new view on life.
I also my last little thing, I guess, just to go back to what the musical puritanism thing is that this also completely rejects it because I feel like the archetypal like snobby jazz musician thing exists probably just globally. Like that's just a kind of guy. Like snobby jazz guy probably exists everywhere in the world. And but yet they wrote a jazz metal opera with the vocalist of Folterkammer and it's good. So I like that. I'm impressed and I'm honestly with this one I am shocked that I listened to however long, like over an hour of
Yeah.
that without any visuals, you know? Pretty
Yeah, it's a
shocked by that.
massive album. And like it's a whole live experience. They have like dancers on stage and all of that. Like I don't think it's fully available. I didn't see it, but there's at least one video or of one song online on YouTube.
That is crazy. So is Andromeda singing and also acting? That would be like way too far. Like that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember seeing like the musicians And the dancers, which were on the wall behind, they were kind of dancing on the wall. Uh, yeah, kind of that. I guess it was a representation of that limbo state or something like that. But I don't remember much. It's been a while since I've seen it.
The last opera that I watched was I watched it because of a conversation you and I had, because you sent me a band called Wozzeck, and Wozzeck, do you
Oh
remember
yeah,
that band?
yeah,
It's like crazy, kind of like IO.
yeah.
Uh,
Was that like the album four I sent you? Because that's
um,
my favorite one. The other ones like five and six, I just don't care. And three is good too. Two, I don't remember. But four
Act
is the
4.
big highlight.
I think maybe, yes, that is the one that you sent.
It's just a
Uh,
40-minute break.
yeah. Um, very, very crazy. Just like maybe you also used the word at the time ordalic to describe music
Oh
that
yeah,
is an ordeal. And I have remembered that forever because I really love music that feels like the performing of the music is an ordeal. And
it's painful.
I've remembered that forever. But then when I was looking this up, I found the actual opera of Wozzeck that Werner Herzog directed, I think. And dude, people acting and singing at the same time like that is actually insane. So it would be really cool to see. I would be very intrigued to see what all is actually acted or how in depth the opera is for this album.
I don't think it's I don't think it's like a theatrical opera.
Yeah,
What I've seen is just like a band on the scene and they're just like singing and then there's these dancers behind them. And
yeah.
that's the extent of it, of what I remember. But maybe there was like maybe a big venue, maybe once they did the whole opera with costumes and all of that. I don't know.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, those are all my takes. I'm surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did because I don't think that's something that I'll probably be like jamming in the car necessarily, but an impressive feat of effort, definitely.
Jeff, do you have any thoughts on it?
Um, I mean, it was my first time hearing Kilter, and as Bishop mentioned, I had added the EP to our Spotify playlist, but I didn't even really get to listening to it on that playlist and just listen to the La Suspendida version. Um, so that's really all I've listened to, but uh, it was it's definitely high quality. They do succeed in the jazz metal opera kind of uh, thing, and like the I didn't know anything really about the story because you didn't send along that little booklet, but hearing about the whole story of the opera really adds a lot to it, and I'm interested now to go back and listen to it again with that in mind. Um, and but I thought it was a great album, and it was very intense, and I liked the level of intensity that came through the music.
It is it's cool hearing Andromeda go that hard
Yeah,
because when Folterkammer, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry, but
I think
Folterkammer
you're right.
when when I saw like, oh, this is a new band with Ezra in it, I got pretty excited because he's just a weird guitar player, and I love the guitar playing in Imperial Triumphant, but I don't really like the two albums that they put out. I don't remember liking them a ton. it almost leans closer to like power metal sort of at times. If I recall, I could be totally off the mark with that, but um, a little too righteous. But but now that I think about it though, like if you have the voice to just go righteous with it, you probably also have the capacity to be a scary freak like she's acting like on this one. And so it's cool to hear her be a scary freak. I appreciate that. Growlers Choir, I don't know them. Seven Sons, I don't know them. Um, yeah, surprising album.
Well, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, you got me there, dude. This and Orgone were two albums where I was like, I don't know. This I don't, because the last episode I felt like a little asshole. I was like, dude, I'm hating on all these albums, like every single one, but I that is really not my usual listening experience or takeaway from stuff. So I was like, I feel like a total jerk. But then this time y'all got me with two albums where I was like, I'm gonna be an asshole again. But they were both surprisingly good, and that makes me glad. So I appreciate y'all sending those. You beat my ass this time. I got my ass handed to me this time.
It's really cool to like get you all out of your comfort zones too.
I'm not sure this album is in anyone's comfort zone.
Yeah.
This is a new zone. Where I landed on this album, I like it. I think it's brilliant. When I hear you're about to listen to a jazz metal opera, I get excited. I'm like, okay, I want this to be great. I have a vision in my head of what this is supposed to sound like. And, part of it immediately, the lack of guitar in Kilter, the fact that everything is filtered through its bass saxophone and bass that is driving everything. And then you add the strings from Seven Sons, that's fine. But there is a dimension that the music doesn't have. I won't say it's lacking because what they do with what they have is great, but just immediately it recalibrates my expectations. It's not the jazz metal opera that I thought it was going to be, but it's something. And so then I like some of the bold choices they make. For example, the opening track hits really hard, and then you go
Yeah.
into limbo, and it is just 4 minutes of ambient strings. And that's like, okay, why are we doing this? Where are we going here? But I like that. I think I mentioned on the previous episode the way Keodot on Hubardo, the first track of that album, which is a 100-minute long album, is this really plodding, abrasive song with like this expansive ambient and growling section. And it's like that's there to cull people that don't deserve to listen to the rest of the album. I think La Suspendida almost does something like that. It's like, here's the extremity of like this intensity and then this ambience. It's like, if you don't make it through that, this album's not for you. If you do, though, it gets wild. I mean, we didn't really talk about, so lyrically, one of the things that I couldn't quite fit together is there's two different tracks, one in the middle and one toward the end, that have a roll call element where they are growling through lists of people, names, ages, and causes of death and locations, I think. And one of them is Maria Elena, who they then dive into her story more. But before that, it's just like, here's a bunch of people who have died. And I'm like, I don't understand the theme here. I couldn't quite figure it out. It's very, there's something a little bit, not to be super pejorative, but it's like it's almost like community theater to hear the sincere growling of these rolls of dead people. I'm like, is this? Can I take this seriously, or has this veered off into the edge of like, this is goofy now?
Well,
but they're delivering it with seriousness. Then toward the very end of the album, I guess, way into the decaying of Maria's corpse in the narrative, some of the lyrics that you can understand that are being growled by Andromeda and others are veering off into that, like, we are really pushing the envelope of taste here of what's going on. There's profanity, there's vulgarity, but it's not crass. It's to serve a function, obviously, but it's definitely the language they're choosing to use is pretty wild toward the end of the album. Uh, but like I'm on board with the overall theme and what they do. I think in terms of the jazz metal opera triangle, it veers closer to opera than the other two. Like they really are selling out on like this is a very
Totally.
theatrical, very the way the songs are constructed. They're not constructed in a metal way. There are metal parts, but the overarching of it is opera, and I think it succeeds in that. And like Bishop, I was kind of surprised that they were able to pull off something that good with the material.
I one thing that I remember like being it made me laugh and like I felt a little surprised is I think one of the songs you're talking about, it may be broken up different on the EP, but hearing Androm I don't know if they're saying death is a bitch or time is a bitch or just someone is a bitch. I completely missed the point of this whole album just listening to the EP. Like just the
Oh yeah.
EP knowing nothing. I was like, this is just a band who thinks that like what they think is good music. I just don't understand what they're doing at all. And they were like, get this person on vocals, and then she's coming on here calling someone a bitch. I was like, dude, like what is happening on this record? It just took me by surprise. But now I know also that's something that I said when I was listening to the full album is so they say, yeah, they're mentioning how people died and the age that they died. And there's like gravity blasts during that part, which, yeah, it's kind of comical.
Mhm.
It is kind of comical. And yeah, you're totally right that it does lean more towards opera than jazz or metal. Maybe it's just like the drums sound like a metal album.
Mhm.
Like that sounds like a metal album. The saxophone riffs sounds like it could be played on a guitar instead. She's screaming. So it has some of those colors that like a metal band would have on their palette and stuff, but you know, there's no breakdown or anything. There's some grab blast there for a minute, and I thought that was hilarious, but that's a good point. Is a good point.
Yeah, in
In
the
terms of
concept, that's that roll call is basically, I think, each day, like the it's the choir of the dead, like the Growlers choir in the story. They're the choir of the dead or something like that, and they're making a roll call of who died today, that day and why. And just like the first time, or maybe it's not the first time, but one time it's just like Tensler dies, the guy who's, you know, and he's like cause of death, heart attack during sex with a corpse.
oh, that's toward the end,
Yeah,
right?
that's in this. That's in the.
That's rough.
Yeah, that's in the lyrics, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now I understand that line. I heard that line. I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, exactly. And just after that, it's the Maria Elena Milagros Key West 21 tuberculosis. It's just because like all these years later, finally she dies.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah.
Doesn't she die in the first roll call as well, though? So there's like the one
I
physical
don't
death
think
and then
so.
maybe a spiritual release toward the end.
Maybe.
I think
Let
I'm
me
pretty
check
sure she's
quickly.
the last one on the first roll call
Oh yeah,
because
you're
then it
right.
goes into the Ballad of Maria Elena, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. So they roll call her, and then it says all shades must comply. But
Mhm.
then she's like, I hate to be rude. Anyway, I won't read you the lyrics, but
Yo, how do y'all know this? Where the fuck are
I
y'all
have the
reading
lyrics,
this?
man.
I was gonna say, there's no way y'all picked up on all this.
I just picked up on those little details, but I didn't pick up on everything altogether. In terms of the attempted intersections of metal and opera. Dave, you're familiar with this band. I've never really listened to it, but how does this album compare to Les Chants du Hasard?
Oh, well, I really prefer the Kilter version of it. Like Les Chants du Hasard is, I don't know, man. It's a cool concept. And it you know he makes cool albums, but I feel this one is much more, I feel, research and much more, I don't know, modern. Les Chants du Hasard is basically just like a classical music, and I think it's, I'm not sure, but I think it's VST classical music. Let me check. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just like VST instruments and with singers on top. But it's just like classical music with death or black metal vocals on top. Well, while this one is more like it's just like a prog metal jazz album with opera vocals on top. It's kind of a different take. See what I mean? And I'm more inclined towards the Kilter one.
That sounds right. I remembered the Les Chants du Hasard's first album. I had no idea they had several other albums since then. I have not been keeping track of that, but
And
I don't know
he
how they're
started another project. I think it's just called ha Hazard.
which is more metal,
Hazard.
right?
Yeah, I think it's more metal. It's on I Void Hanger Records.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, but doesn't say who's, what instruments in that, and I can't recall right now. So, but I think it's a more metal version of that, classical
That
slash
that
metal
might be
fusion
good.
thing. Yeah, that Azar album is pretty good. Yeah.
I just also want to say, I was trying to find this album while y'all were talking. It's more in line with Orgone, but while I was looking, I found a different band that has Kenny Grahowski on drums, which is Titan to Tachyons.
Oh yeah.
And dude, their stuff is pretty good too. That's just another random Kenny band. I don't know if Andromeda is the vocalist of that band too.
I think it's an instrumental band.
Okay, okay. But I remember when Cactides came out because you sent it to me, Dave, and that's another good one to check out.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good one. But I was trying to find some band that you had sent. I don't think that it's Grey Aura. It's some other band that I'll just have to continue to try and find it. But it was another example of like black metal and world music combined in kind of a surprisingly cool way. I felt
World
like,
music?
well,
Ooh,
uh,
do I know who you're talking about, or am I just thinking of Grey Aura because you mentioned them?
I don't think that it's Grey Aura, but I feel like it came out in 2021. Um, I don't know if world music is a fair description, but I'm like looking through my old funeral directory radio playlists, and I know in my head the album cover has like it's like a camera from high up, almost like a drone shot of like horses walking like on a plane. I don't know. It'll bug me until I find it, and I'll send it whenever I do find it. But it's just trying to think of other examples of metal and something that's, you know, just totally opposed in terms of sensibility being combined with it in a cool way. And there are very few examples that I can think of that have done it well. Um, oh, it's bugging me. I wish I knew. I don't think that it's Grey Aura.
Grey Aura is great though.
They're also so weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Is it like
weird.
Book of Sand?
It's newer than that. I
Yeah,
think that
Book of
they
Sand is some weird shit too.
I remember you talking about them last episode, and I had never heard of them. Um, but I followed them whenever you mentioned them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I still need to listen to them, but I remember you saying something about like their album being extremely loud or
Oh
something.
yeah, it's just one of their album. It's crazy loud.
It's just like mastered super loud or
Oh
what?
yeah, it's I think it's mastered at like -5 dB or something like that. I don't recall how
That
you do
rocks.
that, but it's just like clipping all over.
That rocks.
Yeah. And it's not like a loud album in the sense that it's not like distortion and all of that. It's just like a very sincere kind of a folky album, but just like mixed way loud, clipping all the way through and bursting your eardrums. Yeah.
That's funny. Clipping folk album
Yeah.
is pretty sick.
It's a new genre.
Yeah, that's pretty sick. Oh, it's making me mad. Is it BC? No, it's not BC. BSC. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
them. I'll figure it out at
Yeah.
some point.
Maybe we'll add it in the video.
Yeah. BC? Um, I was gonna say that there are still albums from this year that I would like to talk about that we haven't yet. New Wormed, super
Yeah.
good. Love New Wormed. I love the new Krallice album. Um, a decent amount of good stuff has come out. Y'all got any other favorites that you think you would talk some crap about?
Let me check.
Yeah, I did like the new Krallice. I love early Krallice, and then they kind of went off in directions that I wasn't as much of a fan of, but I,
Yeah,
I,
me too.
I did like the new one. On the
Me
cutting
too.
room floor, we were going to talk about Scarcity, the Promise of Rain on this episode, but
Oh
Yeah.
there
yeah.
wasn't that much to say about it other than I think it's a better Krallice album than Krallice has put out in 10 years.
Oh yeah.
It has Krallice's drummer, and it's very, very aggressive, assertive, strident sounding a lot of the time. It kind of settles into more riffy stuff later, but that also falls into the paradigm of like albums that challenge you right at the beginning. There's almost like a siren being played on guitar harmonics in
Oh,
track
I
one,
know.
and it goes on for 5 minutes. It's just like,
I know, dude.
what are they doing?
I was
But
gonna
I love
say,
it.
not only does that go on for like 5 minutes on the first song, it fucking comes back. Like there's another song where that beanie weenie, and it's like it's that rhythm on the like right, and then a slightly different rhythm on the left.
Great.
And I was so ready to beat your ass on that album to talk about how like it's a really cool idea if it were just like a riff in the song, because I didn't love that Scarcity album, but it's made by a bunch of people who like I should totally love that album. I wanted to love that album. I should listen to it again, but yeah, dude, I would talk crap about Scarcity, definitely.
Yeah, I like that album, and it reminded me of another one, but I can't recall what album it was. And it was that kind of same vibe, with high register notes, really dissonant, really square, but like different squares. And yeah, but I can't find the album that it made me think of.
Um, Defacement was a pretty harsh, dissonant death metal. Came out in
Yeah.
July. That was a good album. Hail Spirit Noir, pretty good. New Lewis Cole is amazing.
Oh yeah.
Probably we won't talk about that next episode, but he
Oh
he
Really?
he also gained an orchestra and did amazing things
yeah.
with it. I mean,
Oh, dude, I was scared because of the orchestra. Because
no, it's good. I mean, maybe you won't like it. I don't know, but I love it. What it isn't, it's not. I don't know. I fell in love with early hyper pop Knower and Lewis Cole when he was doing
yes,
Yeah.
dude.
songs about not wanting to check his bank account. Like I love that
Yes.
Lewis
Yeah.
Cole. That
Yeah.
Lewis Cole isn't around really anymore, but what he's doing is still pretty awesome. And there's like some emotional depth to these songs, but then there's also some silliness and, you know, crazy funk drum beats over orchestra that I think there's a lot of really good stuff on that album.
Dude, he's totally still around because Clowncore exists, and on that
Are
last
they still recording anything though?
well, the last Lewis Cole just him, but that wasn't Nowhere. Is still like it's got some hilarious songs on it,
Yeah.
and I think that he'll always be like a little stinker guy.
That's a guy who can talk about cum in his lyrics, and I don't mind.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna say,
there's a "When the Load Is Blown" is one of his songs. It's a great song.
Dude, I was just gonna say, "Park Your Car in My Face." He's the angel version of Charlie Looker, who's like extremely intelligent, skilled musician, who's a little stinker, but their like morality alignment is different for sure.
It's the thing with Lewis Cole is he is not asking to be taken seriously, and therefore I don't have to judge when his lyrics are silly. It's like, okay, this is fine. This is silly music.
No, totally agreed. Indon has a little EP coming out. Evelyn, I think, is a band I found through the blog. Super underrated, like just very crisp, good dissonant death metal band. Evelyn, but it's spelled Evelyn. So
edgy.
Jot that down. Oronsi Pazuzu is going to have an album coming out that I'm stoked about. The singles have been pretty freaking good and sexy.
There was an album a couple months back, Malconfort, that I saw someone on Reddit call like Diet Oronsi Pazuzu, and I thought that was kind of unfair because I thought there was some real interesting stuff going on in different angles than what Oronsi does. That was a pretty neat creative album.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Humanism by Malconfort.
I think my albums of the year so far, really, I mean, in terms of how many times I've listened to them, have been the Tekken 4 full soundtrack and Katamari Damacy full soundtrack, original game.
Amazing.
For some reason, I've just been thinking about what it must have been like to be like a middle-aged Japanese guy in the early 2000s, and your boss comes and tells you like, okay, we don't have music for this. Here's what the game looks like. This he's got a leopard head, so write a song about that. And then he's like, okay, I got you. And you know, you get Tekken 4 soundtrack. And in that PS2 era, it's like a weird transitional era from like the sound chips on your console can play more sounds, so you can get weirder. And yeah, I've listened to the Katamari Damacy soundtrack probably like 20 times this year.
I had that vinyl.
Dude,
wow.
It's one of the best. It's actually one of the best albums just ever made.
It's so unique. It's so good.
It's so good. Yeah. Geigen is apparently writing something too. I don't know if it'll come out this year, but
oh damn, I'm hyped.
Yeah. Well, some legends.
Have you guys listened to the new Ingurgitating Oblivion coming along?
Dude, the single that they put out, that sounds so freaking good. It's so that, like, I feel like last episode I talked a lot about how albums sound, like the mix and master or whatever, and being not like super hype on it. That single that they put out sounds crazy. It sounds just so evil and good. So evil and good.
The whole album is just like,
I'm excited to listen to it, but I'm angry out of principle because they did the thing that I hate the most in the world. They released the last track on the album as the opening single.
No, that's badass.
No,
that's so like, sick.
That is the equivalent to writing a book and showing people the last chapter of the book as an example of how well it's written. You're giving away the ending.
Here's the thing. People who are reading a book are patient. People who are listening to music, maybe they're patient. And so you want to show them, listen to the last fucking song first, okay? Grow up. You're going to listen to the last song first. And yeah, I think you and I agree. I'm a last song guy. Usually the last song, you need to kill it on the last song.
Yeah.
Well,
Releasing the first track.
I totally agree. You need to kill it on the last song, but to me, the last song is the culmination of the album. It
Yeah.
shouldn't make sense to hear without having heard the rest of the album first.
I don't think that it should lack sense or lack context if you haven't heard the beginning of it. But I do think that it's like your farewell, and I think it's kind of cool. One O Tricks Point never did it with his last album, his most recent one. He released the final song as the single, and I just think it's it goes hard in my opinion. Just kind of goes hard. But I'm stoked to listen to it.
I think it's a power move.
Yeah, it's a total power move, dude.
And you're like, I don't know, if the ending's good, I mean, all the way to the ending, it must be good, right?
Yeah, you would hope so.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. Skin Tension put out an album this year too. It was good. I I know we're not even talking about the albums that we had mentioned before, but I assume that probably most of y'all have heard that Ulver album, Shadows of the Sun. Have you all heard that album?
I don't know.
Really? Because in my mind, that's like a widely celebrated. Like if you like Ulver at all, then that's one of the bigger ones. For
Well,
some reason, I thought.
I don't love Ulver. I love the assassination of Julius Caesar, but there are others.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've hopped on Oliver pretty late, so I didn't dig into their discography.
Okay. When my boo boo baby and I were driving to Florida, they were sleeping because we got up super early to drive. So it was like 5 in the morning, and I put that on very quietly, and it was awesome. It actually kind of reminded me of like if John from Coil were still alive and they continued to make music like into the mid 2000s, we'd kind of get that. But the very first lyric of the song of the album is just "the sun is far away," and I fucking cracked up so loud, like in the complete darkness. The volume of the radio was on like 2, but I could just make out that the first line of the album, "Shadows of the Sun," being "the sun is far away," I just lost it right away. And yeah, I was curious if y'all had
So
heard that
deep.
one.
That's right up there with Opeth's "It Is Cold in Here" from Black Rose.
Sun is far away. That's so fucking sick.
All right, guys, I need to leave you guys,
Yeah,
but that was
good talking.
great. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like fun.
you got me, dude. You got me.
What's more fun than a metal opera about a necrophiliac?
Exactly.
True.
Yep. All right. So let's wrap this up and let's meet some next time, I guess.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank y'all.
See you around.
Yeah.
Bye.